Welcome to Inside the 12. It is week 10. I'm Pete Sousa. He is the quarterback, Taylor McHargue. We are back together again. This is what synergy looks like, folks. Week 10, half of 10. That's 5. Do you know that? He went to Rice. He knows that. 5 teams ranked in the top 25 for the Big 12. You've got BYU at 10th, Texas Tech at 13th, Cincinnati 17, Houston 22, and Utah 24th. Here we go. Week 10, the upcoming games, a lot of huge games on the schedule. Anything jump out at you, Taylor?
The most under the radar to me is the opportunity for Kansas State against Texas Tech. Kansas State surging, playing a lot better as of late. A little bit of a trap game situation after the emotional win a week ago for Houston, and then obviously the one that we're going to talk a lot about, Cincinnati and Utah.
Yeah, Cincinnati and Utah. Also, remember, keep BYU after that huge win. They are on a bye, and also on a bye, TCU, after eking out a victory on the road against West Virginia. But you mentioned it. We start number 17, Cincinnati, number 24, Utah, 10:15 Eastern Time, ESPN, College Game Day is there. But man, it is going to be a ruckus atmosphere.
This will be a fantastic game, and what an opportunity for really both of these teams. When we talk about this last part of the season, and when you get into the month of November and you're playing meaningful football, as you try to make that push towards a conference championship, it's games like these that separate whether or not you're going to be there in Dallas for a conference championship or whether you're just fighting for a bowl game. Both of these teams run the football well. And when we think about Utah from a week ago, over 400 yards on the ground against Colorado, Cincinnati's been running the football on the ground well as well. And I think for both of these teams, that's going to be the feature that you're going to try to see which defense can take away the running attack for both of these teams. In the quarterback run game, we expect Devin Dampier to play. Brendan Sorsby really effective on the ground, almost 500 yards for him. Which team is able to run the football better, I think, is going to be the team that wins, along with who takes care of the football.
And one injury update, a key injury update. You speak about running the football. Evan Pryor expected to be out in this game for Cincinnati, averaging 7 yards a carry, north of 500 yards this year. That's a huge loss for that team. So more riding on Brandon Sorsby. And now we're talking about, by the way, maybe some Heisman talk for this guy.
No doubt. Brendan Sorsby's at 27 touchdowns and just 1 interception right now, over 2,200 yards of total offense. And these are the moments, every year this happens, right, where you have a Heisman moment and somebody's able to take advantage and kind of get the national attention on them. And here's your moment if you're Brendan Sorsby. This is your opportunity against Utah on the road in a league game with both of these teams ranked. If he goes out and has a 3 or 4 touchdown performance, no turnovers, and they get a road win, all of a sudden you're talking about Brendan Sorsby as in that top 3 or 4 guys that you're talking about getting to New York as a Heisman finalist, and maybe even, who knows what happens down the stretch, winning the Heisman.
The whole world will be watching, obviously, College Game Day, and the whole world will be watching the game on ESPN. Prime time, once again, for the Big 12. We move on now to Texas Tech, 13th in the country. They will be playing on the road at Manhattan. That is 3:30 Eastern Time. Game is on Fox. 30th anniversary of the first game of the Big 12. These two teams, check them out, playing in the first conference game. That is Spike Dykes, dad of Sonny Dykes. Of course, there is Bill Snyder. I know my man Byron Hanspard was playing in this game. He was an absolutely electric running back, but you see right here, Kansas State would win at home 21-14.
This was the first ever matchup in the Big 12, and what always stands out to me when you see these old highlights, the shoulder pads. Everybody looks like they're 30 pounds heavier than the guys that play today. But this game, Texas Tech going on the road to Kansas State. Kansas State, I think, is the hottest team in the league right now that no one's really talking about. Last 2 wins for them, playing really well against TCU and against Baylor. And I think Kansas State sort of found their rhythm. First part of the season after coming back from Ireland, could not get stops on the defensive side of the ball. They figured out a way to create some takeaways. I think this is absolutely a trap game for Texas Tech. And it looks like they're going to get Baron Morton back in this game. And man, if you're a Red Raiders fan, this is one that you're a little bit nervous about because you've got a huge matchup next week. You said BYU's on a bye, so they're going to be sitting at home watching this. Tech and BYU next week. This is a huge letdown spot if Texas Tech doesn't come ready to play against a surging Kansas State team.
I have a feeling Texas Tech will be ready to play. I don't think we'll see the 36-point margin of victory that they have this season, by the way, which is lights out. When you consider they've only lost 1 game and their average margin of victory is 36 points. I mean, that is absolutely unbelievable. Jumps off the page and ranks second nationally.
They've been blowing the doors off of people except for the loss on the road at Arizona State. Now remember, that was a game Will Hammond was playing. He's now out, unfortunately, with an ACL injury. But Texas Tech fought back in that game. They had a lead with about a minute left. And Arizona State at home, as we know, they're tough to beat typically. Houston got the better of them a week ago. But for Texas Tech, I think we're going to see they're going to put this game on their front seven in a unit that I think is the best, the deepest pool in terms of the front seven in all of the Big 12. They're going to have to get after Avery Johnson and this rushing attack for Kansas State and then take care of the football. The Wildcats have done a really nice job creating takeaways the last 2 weeks. That's a feature in every game, but it'll be incredibly important in this matchup.
Man, a lot of good games also coming behind this one. Houston, they are rolling behind the play of Connor Wegman. They're also chasing history. Does Connor Wegman have that skill set to take them all the way? We dig into that with our own Taylor McHargue coming back. We are rolling here on Inside the 12 as we welcome you back. Guess who else is rolling? That's right, the 10th ranked BYU Cougars. And I'm going to call this a signature win for BYU because of the way they did it, Taylor. They came back.
Well, there's no doubt in how they came back in that game. Iowa State came out swinging, scored on their first possession on a deep shot play, but BYU stayed in the game, had a pick six that sealed it late. And I agree with you. That, to me, was the most impressive win of the season so far for BYU.
And you see all 8 teams, as we take a look at the standings, they are all still in the running for a shot at Arlington. Even TCU, coming off that win against West Virginia, keeps hope alive.
It's the fireworks again at the top of this league. Feels like every season when we get into the month of November, you've got the teams that are still in contention to potentially win the Big 12. A lot of matchups getting to play one another down the stretch, but a couple good ones this week that will break down, and some teams that I think have surprised a lot of us, like Houston specifically, that they are right there at the top, ranked now for the first time this season, and an opportunity to win this league if they play well down the stretch.
And I think Houston's win, a big win, right? They are now 7-1, as you mentioned, 4-1 in conference. They beat number 24 Arizona State on the road, and they beat them like a drum, you know, and the defense was exceptional. Arizona State doesn't score till the fourth quarter. Impressive for Willie Fritz.
I thought it was the most impressive win so far of the season for Houston because of exactly what you said on the defensive side, that they came out and shut down Arizona State, held them scoreless for the first 3 quarters. And I get Arizona State's got some injuries on the offensive side and they didn't play great, but credit to Houston for going on the road in a spot where typically Arizona State has played extremely well at home. And then credit to Connor Wegman as well. Over 300 yards of total offense, how he led that offense running the football and throwing. I think this went from a team that was sort of a feel-good story in the league to, well, it's not just going to be a bowl team. This could be a team that could win the Big 12 this year.
I want to make one last point because we're going to go into the quarterback club with Connor Wegman. This is a celebration, by the way, of Willie Fritz and his great work through the portal. We've heard a lot of coaches say this year, hey, I misevaluated the talent. Rich Rodriguez said that point blank last week. You look at Connor Wegman, Tanner Koziol, Dean Connors, 2 defensive backs, Jordan Allen, Will James. Great gets out of the portal. Impact guys who are making this happen.
There's no doubt. They've done a great job with their evaluations and then capitalizing on the guys that they brought in, and they have been the impact players so far for the Cougars.
All right, let's take a look at the tape. I know you love to do this. We are in the quarterback room right now, in the quarterback club. Connor Wegman, take it away.
Again, over 300 yards of total offense. We've got 3 clips here today that show you the difference between his ability to move the football through the air and on the ground. And this was right out of the gate, first possession, quarterback counter, does a nice job with patience, and then speed to the outside. Now, he does get caught. Wegman, we got to unhitch that wagon a little bit. But how about this? Your quarterback being able to create an explosive play for you on the ground. And it was a little bit muddy there. He's got to make somebody miss and then get vertical. Shows you, again, why he was a 5-star recruit as a dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school. This, to me, this was a beautiful play design from offensive coordinator Slade Nagel. They get a little bit of a nod route from Tanner Koziol and throw it to that back line. Love this play design. Sell like it's going to be the out route and then throw it up high. Good touch there. Put it on the back line for the touchdown to Koziol. And then this last one, this is your back shoulder fade that every quarterback works on this, but this is easier said than done. Your wide receiver's not winning over the top, so what do? You have the corner, they're back to you, throw it right off of that corner's ear on that back shoulder fade. When you're able to throw this effectively as a quarterback, this is the most difficult throw for corners to stop because they've got their back to you. They feel like they're in phase, in good coverage, and then you put it in a spot where only your guy can get it. 3 different clips that show you again why Conner Weigman playing at the top of his game right now. And credit to Conner Weigman from a year ago in his career at Texas A&M where it looked like, man, what was going to happen in his career? Now moving over to Houston and have them in a position to not just get, compete in this conference, get to a bowl game. Now, forget all that. They've got a legitimate chance, and look at the strength of schedule in the back half of the schedule this last month. Houston can win this conference. There's no doubt in my mind, and Conner Weigman is a huge part of that.
And Conner Weigman, by the way, for the first time in his life, playing meaningful games in late October into November in college. I mean, life is a confidence game, and so is football. He's got to be feeling that esteemable burst, right, being on the field, winning late.
There's no doubt. Credit to Willie Fritz for getting the confidence in Conner Weigman, and then credit to Conner Weigman and his teammates for putting Houston in this spot. That was a big win over Arizona State.
I'll never forget our first trip of the season, right? We were talking to Conner Weigman. He held the door for me. Taylor did not. That's all you need to know about Conner Weigman. All right, what you need to know about now, it is time for last week's game-breaking plays brought to you by Hell of a Good Dips. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good. All right, let's get started. Texas Tech. Early on, guess who? Jacoby Williams. Gonna take this, get ready for some fireworks. 99 yards, all the way back for a touchdown. He was named Big 12 Coach Special Teams Player of the Week, and for good reason. 42-0. Texas Tech rolls.
Head to Lawrence, Kansas, where Kansas State, how about this touchdown between Avery Johnson and Jace Brown? 78-yard touchdown pass over the top, 160 yards on the day for Brown, and a big-time performance for Avery Johnson. Big-time win as well for Kansas State, 42-17 on the road in a rivalry matchup.
How about the freshman quarterback, Bird Ficklin? No Devin Dampier, excuse me. No problem. There he is, Ficklin. 151 rushing yards on the day. That was a 68-yard outburst there. Colorado would lose this game to Utah 53-7. Utah 422 yards on the ground in that game. Look out, Cincinnati. Just a warning.
How about Bird Ficklin? Coming off the bench, 300 yards total offense, ran for more than $150. Offensive Player of the Week in the Big 12. That was big-time stuff out of the freshman.
Well, and he makes you feel pretty good. If Dampier can't go, hey, you're not in too bad of hands there. All right, we're going to step aside and come back. We're talking hardware, awards, some previews, who we think right now is deserving of some of these trophies in the Big 12. Inside the 12 is back. Pete Sousa alongside Taylor McHargue. Who would have thought it, man? We are now 8 weeks into the season. We are all through 8 games. Offensive, defensive, newcomers. There's awards for all of those things, and we got you covered midway through the season. Now, Offensive Player of the Year. The preseason pick by the media was Sam Leavitt. Who do you have right now?
I think Sam Leavitt, had he not been injured, I think there's still a chance that he would have been in this conversation. But to me, right now, it's Brennan Sorsby. And when we talk about who is the most important player to their team, right now, to me, it's Brennan Sorsby. When you think about what he's done throwing the football, but also on the ground, 27 total touchdowns, just the 1 interception. Putting Cincinnati at the top of this league, having them ranked with a chance in November to win games and get themselves to Dallas with a chance to win this league, I think you have to look first at Brennan Sorsby. And we've talked all year about the quarterback club and the depth of quarterback talent in this league. There are a number of guys that you can make a case for, but I go back to who is the most important player to their team, and in my opinion, it's Brennan Sorsby in Cincinnati.
Okay, well, let's move on now. I picked Jordan Tyson, and I love Jordan Tyson because he's a superstar, plain and simple. And when you're a superstar and you have numbers to back that up, you see 57 catches, 628 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 1 rushing TD. One of my favorite parts about Jordan Tyson really is that he has lived up to the hype. Bit of a slow start to the season. His athleticism, body control, speed, size, it speaks to me. and it says, I'm the best offensive player in this conference.
Well, and a guy that's also going to be taken on day one in the NFL draft. This is going to be a first-round pick at the wide receiver spot. You'll see him playing a long time. I don't hate that pick at all.
No, how about defense, though? I love some defense. And preseason, the media had picked Jacob Rodriguez to be the Defensive Player of the Year. Who you got?
I'm going chalk here. I'm going with Jacob Rodriguez. Almost 70 tackles on the year. The stat that stands out to me most, though, on the end there, 5 forced fumbles, able to create takeaways for your defense. And this is also a guy, anytime defenses line up on every single play, they're identifying where is number 10, because that is somebody that's so disruptive. Sometimes it's not even the stats that he's making. It's the fact that you've got guys that they're having to assign where is number 10, how do we take him out of the play, because he's so disruptive, and he's the emotional leader for, in my opinion, the best defense in the Big 12.
Well, I think the best defender in the Big 12 is David Bailey. Modern day high school, Stanford, now in West Texas, right? Everywhere is West Texas, and there he is, always getting after the quarterback. 25 tackles, 10 and a half sacks, leads the NCAA, 2 forced fumbles. He is what Bill Parcells calls a Tuesday problem. Kansas State is thinking, I got to stop this dude. I got to, like, how am I going to stop that?
Well, between both of these guys in the middle, again, it speaks to, for Texas Tech, what a fantastic job Joey McGuire and this staff have done in building up their roster, that the two guys, as we move into the month of November, that we're saying are your defensive players of the year, are both on this defense for the Red Raiders.
How about newcomer of the year? This is an exciting category, especially when you consider all the high-profile freshmen and all the high-profile transfers. We'll start with you.
I'm going with Bear Bachmeier because, again, to remind people, you go back to the summer, this was not the starting quarterback for BYU in the summer. Jake Retzlaff has everything go down. He ends up at Tulane. Bear Bachmeier now is your guy. How about 20 total touchdowns on the season and running the football? Last week, to me, I thought his most impressive performance. You were on the road at Iowa State, and there were some big boy throws in there. It was not just throwing like a freshman. He had to make some layered throws, some touch throws, and some throws under duress. And I think you're seeing a freshman play more and more like he's not a freshman in developing as the season goes along. Can't say enough good things about Bear Bachmeier and his toughness as a quarterback. You got to be tough. If you're going to wear 47 as a quarterback, you better be a dude. And Bear Bachmeier has stepped up week in and week out, and I think he's playing his best football right now. You know,
Andre Ware, ESPN's Andre Ware, mentioned the fact that he talked to Bear Bachmeier about, had you ever seen Jim Kelly play, right? That linebacker mentality, right? And Bear Bachmeier said, I actually did. I looked him up and I watched the way he played quarterback. Similar mentality. Not bad to be lumped in with Jim Kelly. Not bad at all. All right, my guy, Dean Connors. Let's go, right? I think he is the key to Houston's success and what possibly could be an 11-win season. 135 carries, 586 yards, 4 touchdowns, also 18 catches for 130 yards. I think there's plenty more where that came from as far as catching the football. And it's also a pretty cool story, right? What is he, 4 miles down the road? He transfers from Rice to Houston. That's pretty cool. And Willie Fritz told us all the coaches wanted credit before the season, right? I got him to stay. No, he got him to stay. Fritz said his girlfriend. She lives in Houston. He wasn't going anywhere.
Well, and I know my Rice Owls certainly miss Dean Connors, but I think going back to that week 1 game against Stephen F. Austin, Willie Fritz told us we don't have an every down back yet. We got to figure out who that is. Dean Connors has stepped up and been that guy. And that consistency, I think, has been huge for Connor Wegman in that offense.
Yeah, how much better does a guy like Dean Connors make Connor Wegman, a quarterback, coming from you?
And knowing who's going to be there next to you. And it's not just, we've talked a lot about his production running the football and catching. He's also, in my opinion, their best in pass protection as well. He'll stick his face in the fan and get those pick up a block on a linebacker or even a defensive end off the edge. I think he's an all-around back. And again, the confidence that he's given Connor Wegman, I think, is evident.
All right, we're not done yet. We're coming back. We have trap games. We have quarterback club guys that we haven't talked about yet. We've also got some coaches maybe playing for their future or coaching for their future. We're going to come back. Narratives, headlines. We break down the matchup. Inside the 12 is brought to you by Hell of a Good Dip. Game on. Dip in with Hell of a Good. All right, a reminder as we look at the schedule this week, TCU and BYU are on byes. And don't forget, number 17, Cincinnati and Utah. They start the day with College Game Day, ESPN. And then later in the night, 10:15 Eastern time. You can catch the game, a Big 12 Top 25 showdown, and that game is on ESPN. Let's take a look now. Let's dive into some of these matchups. Number 22, Houston, right? They're hosting West Virginia. I had a chance to call West Virginia's game last week against TCU. Scotty Fox has arrived. 301 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He looked comfortable and confident.
And that's a huge piece for West Virginia going on the road where they've struggled really all season. And for Houston, this is a letdown spot, right? You have this massive win, huge emotional win on the road at Arizona State. Everyone's talking about you now. You're now ranked. You're at the forefront of the conversation in this league to potentially win the league. Well, now here comes West Virginia that no one's really expecting much out of. This is absolutely a letdown spot for Houston. I think this is an area where Willie Fritz will have his team ready to go. This is a guy that's been around the block. He's lived through these moments before. He's going to have his team ready to go, I think. But for Houston, and be ready to go because Rich Rodriguez would love nothing more than to play spoiler on the road at Houston.
We transitioned to UCF at Baylor. This game is critical, really, for the future of the Baylor football program.
I think there's a lot of people that are looking to see how does Baylor perform in the back half of the season and in this last month of the season. There's been a lot of talk about Dave Aranda, his future, and this staff's future. And I think this is a game that you're going to learn very quickly what does the fight look like in November and the rest of the season for the Baylor Bears. They have struggled giving the ball away these last couple weeks in losses on the offensive side. Sawyer Robertson in this offense, they're moving the ball fine as they've done all season, but it's been the giveaways, the takeaways from the defensive side, forcing turnovers against Sawyer Robertson in this offense. They've got to clean that up. In Central Florida, much like we talked about with West Virginia, UCF is getting better as the season goes along, and I think UCF's figuring out who their playmakers are. This is absolutely a spot they could go in and get a win on the road against Baylor. We'll see between these two. There's a big spot for Baylor, and whether or not, now how does the rest of the season go, I think will be determined by this game.
Yeah, UCF, they have playmakers everywhere. Those Florida guys, they stay home and they show out. All right, final game of the slate, Arizona State at Iowa State. It's actually a Big 12 title game rematch from last year. Both teams have a lot to play for. 1 Eastern time on TNT.
To me, this is interesting because both of these teams are reeling, and both of them, I think, absolutely had championship aspirations coming into this season. It looks like for both of them, that's no longer really in the picture, especially for Iowa State. Started the year off 5-0. They've now lost 3 straight. Can they get themselves off the mat? And I know this is a team that will have some fight in them. This is not a team that I think is going to roll over. That staff will not allow it. And Arizona State, same thing with Kenny Dillingham. They're going to make sure that even with their starting quarterback, Sam Leavitt, out, they will be ready to go. I think this will still be a competitive game, but just curious to see, can Iowa State sort of right the ship after October has not been kind to them? Can they get to that 6th win and get to bowl eligibility?
I can promise you the Cyclones are doing everything in their power. You can expect Rocco Beck to be at the building probably 24 hours a day leading into this one, and the fans in Ames will certainly be ready. We know you're going to be ready too. Remember, college football in the Big 12 starts early on Saturday with ESPN's College Game Day. On the site of that Cincinnati-Utah game, start there and take it through your whole Saturday. For Taylor McHargue, I'm Pete Sousa. We will see you next week on Inside the 12.